Hi there, this is Darrel Letendre for Informal Assessment Strategy for course PDIP 3230. The assessment strategy that I have chosen for this video focuses on a combination of performance task checklist and peer assessment. Informal assessment involves collecting information by observing the performance of students. A performance checklist is a tool that states specific criteria in relation to outcomes and can be used to ensure that the practice is accurately done. In peer assessment, students give and receive feedback from their peers as they learn and evaluate themselves based on the instructor's benchmarks. Students can get a wider range of ideas about their work to promote development and improvement. In a large classroom setting, it is difficult to closely monitor all students at once, so peer assessment gives the instructor a valid way to help students to practice the required skill.
This informal assessment approach would be best utilized in a course that has a large hands-on environment or setting where a large component is focused on actual hands-on skills and techniques that students need to learn. In order for one to achieve the success with a skills-based checklist, it is important to have the space needed for students to practice their skills. This is one of the reasons why I chose this particular strategy, as it mirrors the same type of setting found in both the metal fabrication classroom and the shop setting. A performance task checklist. The student has a skill to learn and needs to practice and eventually demonstrate proficiency of that skill. The ultimate goal of a checklist is to wean the student of their reliance on our guidance and approval. We want the student to not only be self-directed, but eventually self-regulating. This is why rubrics and checklists are so powerful. Most of the performance objectives in the metal fabrication curriculum involve several detailed steps to successfully complete those tasks. This performance task checklist fits in line with that model. In metal fabrication, an example would be to set up, use, and dismantle an oxygen acetylene torch fuel unit. The performance task for each student is to set up the oxy-fuel unit, burn a steel plate, and then shut off and dismantle the different components of the system. The checklist is handed out to each student and contains an itemized step-by-step process of how to perform the tasks and the rationale for each step in the checklist. The peer assessment portion is such that in groups of two, the students work together, and while one practices the task, the other observes the checklist and provides informal feedback. The key to both success and limitation of the strategy is one and the same, which is student motivation and discipline. The students need to be motivated to practicing in groups of two, and in that they need to be disciplined enough to observe each other closely and compare each other's performance to the checklist. It is possible for bad habits to be formed if they are not watching each other closely. It is also possible for bad habits to be formed if they are not able to recognize excellence in performance. For example, did they observe the initial demonstration by the instructor closely enough? Are they comparing their partner's performance to that demonstration? The instructor can also help by doing spot checks, but ultimately it is up to the student to ask questions where they think they may have gaps in knowledge, as the instructor is not able to watch all groups at once. There are several advantages to this form of informal assessment. 1. The student get a lot of practice time with the skill. 2. They get immediate and ongoing informal feedback from each other. 3. The instructor is able to observe the different groups working and also provide informal feedback. And 4. The students working the checklist also learn and internalize as they observe their partner performing the skill. Some of the best practices for this strategy are as follows. 1. A clear and concise demonstration by the instructor of the task that is to be practiced by the students. 2. The instructor needs to be clear about what is expected of the students' behavior and their performance while they practice together. 3. Inform students as to how much time allotted for that practice session. 4. An instructor can hold oneself accountable by following best practices such as using the same checklist in practice that is used in skill testing students. Validity and reliability. The validity of the content in the skills checklist is based on theory taught in the classroom and directly correlates to the steps demonstrated by the instructor taught in the shop. One way to ensure validity of the students performing the task successfully is if the student is able to successfully perform this task in accordance with the checklist. They should then be able to perform the task in the work environment. By providing a supportive peer learning environment, this should decrease the students' anxiety, providing a safe learning experience, motivating them to achieve higher results. The process validity, which also impacts reliability, is maintained in that the checklist items are practical and clear. There is no ambiguity, and as such, each item describes clearly the action to be taken and the rationale for each item. The items are arranged in sequential order, and the same checklist that is used to practice the skills in the shop setting is also used for the class testing. Strategies for providing feedback to students. In a situation where the performance checklist and peer assessment strategy were applied in metal fabrication classroom setting, the instructor would hand out the checklist at the beginning of the demonstration and would then explain and demonstrate to students a dry run, which is without actually lighting up the torch, of an oxygen and acetylene fuel setup. During and at the end of the demonstration, he would ask students for clarification and assess if they completely understood what was expected of them and compare these results to the checklist. Additional demonstration and feedback may be necessary. In a metal fabrication shop setting, this instructor would demonstrate the actual practical hands-on skills as they would be performed in the workplace. He would ensure that he communicated the demonstration in a clear and concise manner. The demonstration would take place at the beginning of the class, and he would be careful to point out each step in the checklist as he performed it in front of the students. Feedback would be asked of the students to ensure clarity on what is expected of them according to the checklist. When breaking the students off into pairs, it is essential to be clear about what is expected of their behavior and their performance while they practice together, and to include how much time is allotted for that practice. Students would be advised that at some point during the practice session, possibly halfway into the session, one of the students and one of the sets of the students would be picked at random to demonstrate the skill in front of the rest of the class. This galvanizes and motivates the students to practice hard, knowing that they will be demonstrating for the others, and enables the others to critique that group and learn when the demonstration by the students is made. In addition, the instructor would be observing the students performing their tasks as they practice and would provide them with additional feedback. As feedback is gathered by the instructor, he may decide to repeat the demo to clarify steps within the checklist, or move on to the next task if the students have mastered the current one. Thanks for watching.